Hello, everyone. You're listening to Northern Flights, a Park Pro podcast keeping you up to date with the people, tournaments, and culture of disc golf in Canada and beyond. Consider becoming a Patreon today at patreon.com/parkpro. Find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Disc Golf Park. And now your hosts, Andre, Jesse, and Matt.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 34. Yeah, that's right. We got Max, Jesse, Matt in the house as usual. Wow. We also have a very special guest. He is your current Canadian national champion. We got Casey Hanemayer on the show. How's it going, Casey?
Good. Just relaxing.
Fully bearded.
Winter mode.
Whoa!
Staying warm.
Cold outside. Not right now. It's like +5, but it was cold.
Yeah, makes sense. I feel like when it's cold outside, your beard actually grows a little bit faster. Make up for this. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I haven't shaved in weeks.
I can tell. Well, I mean, let's just start this off by saying, first of all, congrats again on winning nationals, but also congrats on a big season. You had a really good season, came off with a few key wins. What would you say is your biggest highlight of the year?
I feel like just how I played at BC Open, and just like and then I kind of overcame adversity on the 9th hole there, or 10th hole, or no, it was the 9th hole. Right? It was like take that double bogey and then just birdie out. I think that probably was the highlight of the year for me.
Yeah, I mean that probably felt. I remember filming that and just like my gut is just like, oh no, Casey on that hole.
Throws
like,
it away.
Oh no! But then like you just
gangster mode.
Oh man, it was just you. And the thing is, like being there, you just like you were dialed in, and you could just tell you were so focused. And I mean, you were able to carry that into nationals as well. So, which was only a couple weeks after that. So, obviously, that momentum is huge. So
that 9th hole was like it was insult and injury too, because you went into the rough and it's that like southern BC like blackberry branches everywhere that are grabbing your legs and stuff. You had to get out of there twice and then continue with the hole and then go on to birdie 9 in a row. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Was it just a double bogey?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I took a par 4. I took a 6, I think. Yeah.
Because I remember watching the coverage and like I forgot that you took a big number.
Yeah.
But like I was also watching it and I was like, oh, he's in the rough. Like it didn't look like 6 strokes for some reason. Like it just kind of like glazed over, but then it was like, oh wait, what happened to Casey? Like I didn't even like on coverage. And I don't know how well the other guys did on the hole either. Like maybe it was just everybody chopping it up, but
I think one birdie. I think
somebody else was.
And then one bogey, and then I think a par. So I think we got like the whole spectrum
of
it.
Yeah, rainbow.
I remember coming up to you, I think right after you guys finished 9 and asking if you wanted a caddy because the conditions were ridiculous. And you looked like your brain wasn't even in your skull anymore. You must have been so like flow state focused.
Yeah.
There was like a long pause, like, I think I'm good. And a little bit of a nod. And that was the whole thing. I was like, all right. And then I hadn't looked at scores all day, so I didn't know that you just had the worst hole of your tournament. It's either going really, really good or really, really bad. Yeah. And then sat down and looked at scores and went, okay, really, really bad. Got nervous, tried to be away from you so no one look at you. And then boom, birdie. Just man on a mission.
What were you through 8 holes? Finished.
I was 3 strokes up on Chris.
Okay. Was it 13 down total?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember. Somebody has to pull up the stats.
It does play out kind of that way, though. I think you were a 3 up, and then you got within 1 or something.
1. He was within 1 on 10, and then I then I won by 5 at the end.
But you you sort of needed to birdie out because like I think Withers got 8 out of 9 or something like that. Like everybody else was getting birdies like crazy too.
Yeah. Well, I think
I was just
card.
Chris was staying with you
like
the whole
6 in
time.
a row or like 4 from 12 on. I think we like till 16. I think we all birdied every hole.
Yeah, 17 and 18 shook things up quite a bit, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, the course should like those conditions. Sure, it was hot, but it was a little windy. But like a course like that, you should be shredding. Like I was surprised, and like I had a brutal first round, but I was surprised that everybody in the top like 5, 6 wasn't going 12 to 14, 15.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Because they're like, 9 was like the one where it's like, okay, if you go off the fairway, like par is tough, but everything else, like it should have been manageable. Like, not like a little bit of OB here and there, but nothing to like there's just too many birdie opportunities.
So have you ever been in a sort of like a state like that flow state that Jesse mentioned? Have you had that feeling before and been in that sort of mode in any previous tournament?
Definitely from previous sports I have, like playing hockey and stuff. I think I would assume if you've played sports kind of growing up throughout life, you kind of know when that is happening. Previously, probably the other time that I had it is when we played BC Provincials on Rose Hill when the west side was in. No, the east side of Rose Hill. The last time it ever got played in a tournament, and I am, I guess, the only person to go bogey free on that course. And I remember shooting like 11 down or something on that course, and it was like, one of the craziest rounds I ever had.
I remember
to that point. Yeah, it was freaking nuts.
Because I'm pretty sure the course record on that side was 12 or 13 by Dave Felberg.
That was the first 1100 rated round, right?
Yeah. And you came within one or two of the record and did it without a bogey, and he had a bogey, so you got that on your name. First time I found out there was disc golfers from Cranbrook, and I got all excited there could be another one. It turns out it was this wild man setting course records at the same time.
That's always disappointing. We were talking about it before we came on, but during that round, and actually during a lot of the BC Open especially, the lead card that we were filming, the mood was not overly positive for a lot of the players for a lot of the event. And you were one of the reasons why I felt sort of confident that you were going to pull it out was because while everybody was in the dumps, even if they weren't behind by that many strokes, your mental approach to the game was very, very level-headed the entire time, and you didn't get sucked into that into those bad vibes on the card. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you've always had as part of your game? Is that something you've had to work on? Like, have you had hot-headed rounds that have gone really poorly and you've had to like focus up and say, okay, I can't play this way? Where does that come from?
I think it's a combination of a bunch of things, but playing sports coming up in life and just kind of knowing when other people are like feeling bad and kind of being babies about playing disc golf. It's just like, I don't know, you really can't do anything about what other people are doing, right? And especially when you kind of know who you're playing with, you kind of just block it out. And I feel like I've learned that just from playing different sports. It's like I legit, not to name any names, but like Scott can be a little iffy sometimes. And when like he gets like that, I just like legit don't hear anything.
Tune it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it comes down to like, is it like borderline courtesy violation worthy? Because it's like
sometimes
it is very detrimental to the group. where somebody's just being overly negative and being verbally, it obviously it's not abuse, but you're just being negative in a way that is obviously hurting the group. And just a lot of people, I think a lot of it is, a lot of these guys started playing disc golf young, got really good, didn't really have much pushback, where now they're the big dog of their area and nobody's going to say anything to them. And maybe, a lot of people not playing other sports, not really learning like sports etiquette or any of that. So it's a shame that there is that much whining on the pro tour, or even at big A tiers. Like it's golf. You should be in control of your emotions, and like there's courtesy violations for a reason. And I would like to see it be enforced a bit more, that when somebody's running their mouth, like you just can't do that. Like, and especially when you do have a following, when there's kids following your card, they're looking up to you saying, I want to be exactly like this person. And when that person is throwing F-bombs, kicking their bag, like it's just not good.
Yeah, it's almost like it's not just that it makes you sort of get sucked into that feeling, but you're feeling embarrassment because like if you were just in a group of people and one of your friends was acting like that in a public place, like it's embarrassing, but somehow it's more acceptable because you're playing a sport.
Sure, heat of the moment, but you can only say that and account for so much behavior. So,
well, I think
we've talked about this before, between just players and stuff, and I do think like especially on the pro tour, like you said, it gets a little out of hand, and there's you guys have 1,000 people on the course watching. He's like, I think there should be marshals, right? I think the pro tour should invest in that, right? Just especially like the time thing plus the courtesy thing. It's just
like for the good of the sport.
For the good of the sport, yeah, exactly.
Because like nobody wants to see that, and like it's what is the word? Detrimental. Like to their image, to their career. Like you don't want to see it. You don't want to see it for the future of the game. So marshals would definitely be a good investment.
Yeah, and you don't want to create that culture too. Like you get, like Casey's played with a guy like Scott, not to single him out, but like knows who he is and knows that that's not how everybody is. But like if you're a young pro and you get up and you're playing on a card with him and you're thinking, oh, man, this guy's a pro and this is how he acts, so it's okay, that's how I'm going to act. And then he's going to go back to his club and all the other people that look up to him are going to be like, oh, this is how good players act. So it does have like a knock-on effect.
Well, maybe I wanted to touch on the Scott situation and Casey directly.
Not to name any names.
But I've watched Scott play a bunch and I've been around and stuff, and he's very passionate about it. And I don't think it comes from a bad place. It just comes from having standards and having to needing an outlet for the emotions when he doesn't live up to those standards. But what I was going to say was, Casey, you yourself are like one of the most level-headed players I've played with over the course of a round or whatever. You don't see a ton of up and downs. When you see someone like Scott, who's really talented and probably the biggest competition you had at the event, go into that kind of bad headspace, do you see that as like a blood in the water moment where you should put on more pressure and take advantage of the bad mentals, or is it something you try not to think about at all?
Like I said before, I really try to block it out, and just from playing enough disc golf now, most of the time when somebody starts doing that, they don't play good, right? And it's like, even myself, like when I start getting pissed off at myself and swearing a bit, even in practice rounds, it's like you're not playing good after that.
Rarely.
It's like you just you really, it's so hard to brush off. Like it really is after like a stupid shot that you throw. But
sometimes your drives go 10 or 15 feet further though when you're mad. It's not good for the approach part.
Never seems to happen with me. Never seems to happen with me. I I feel like if I'm tense, it's never gonna be good, really. So I like Jesse. Yeah, I really just try to block it out, and because I think even like I don't know if some guys do this on purpose, but I think some guys do it to get in other people's heads, right? And I understand that's part of the gamesmanship and stuff, but I think if you're gonna play pro disc golf, it shouldn't be part of the sport. Like when somebody's losing it, like Max said, it gets in everybody's heads. It brings the card down. It really does. So,
well, maybe I can hit another bit of a tangent here too. With that philosophy in mind, do you think the best competitive disc golf would be played in like a lap time type scenario where you have a time trial type in racing, but like in disc golf, the course to yourself at a time where, say, a marshal walked with you, you put down your best possible score? If the logistics weren't a nightmare to get 100 people through a course like that, or is the broader game of disc golf better because of those kind of interactions?
I would say it's better if you have card mates, right?
It takes away like the scenario of two people going head to head down the stretch.
Yeah.
Because sure, maybe like first round you do like a time trial style, but like the back and forth part of it, you have to have, and then obviously there's like the chase card winners that are completely off the radar and not in the same atmosphere, but like all the best, or even just like playoff, like sudden death playoffs, it's you don't get that kind of atmosphere any other way.
Definitely.
I would agree with you. I guess then it begs the question of where's the line between what is natural pressure from two people head to head at something and where it becomes a manipulation, and maybe what level of the manipulation between players is acceptable. Like, I'm not saying making noises in people's backswings and stuff. That's terrible, but is my chest out standing real close to the back of the tee box when you walk back for that disc? Like, like where do you draw the line with making it exciting, putting on the pressure, and then not making it a circus? One for the fans, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's another thing of just playing. If you've played other sports and you kind of know where that line is, right? Most people have enough etiquette where I can kind of play with this guy a bit, maybe try to get in his head a bit, and don't go over that line. Because I do little things as well, right, to mess with people. I think everybody does. Yeah, I think there is a line, and especially I haven't called many people, but when somebody does it over and over again, I have talked to guys about it, right? And I'm not that guy to just stand by and just say nothing anymore. For the first like couple tournaments of playing pro, I was just like, yeah, whatever, this guy's like this, I'll let him do it, right? But when you start playing with guys more and more, you kind of notice things that they try to do, and then it's just you just go up to them and be like, if you don't stop, I'll call you on it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a good example of sort of that attitude, and it's maybe a smaller attitude because Stu is one of the most stand-up guys, but in the 2022 TC Open, I remember there was on hole 6, I believe, maybe it was hole 7 or 8, I can't remember. There was a moment where Stu and totally on accident just stepped on his disc, and you just kind of went up to him and just said, "Hey, just so you know, Stu, you stepped on your disc. Just watch for that," kind of thing. It wasn't called. It was just like "Hey, this happened. Just keep an eye on that." I mean, we may as well bring it up. You were on the call for it. Thomas Gilbert in Canadian Nationals in round 2 called Kalen on a foot fault, and in real time it looked like the disc went flying. And for better or worse, Thomas got a lot of flack for that in the comment section on the YouTube video. There was people coming to his defense as well. What's your opinion on something like that? And I mean, like, you have to, I mean, you can't just say like, what's your opinion on this call? But, when you take into account the whole situation of, it's a Canadian Nationals, you're down by a few strokes and you see something that you think was a foot fault, is that going to change your mentality of whether you're going to call something or not?
Oh man, it like we kind of talked about it on the commentary there, but like I understand where Thomas was coming from. Of like he wanted to call it, right, and he called it. He didn't step back and say, "Oh no, it was my fault. Like it shouldn't have been called or whatever." He said it, and it got seconded, right, and obviously when we watched it on film, it wasn't a foot fault, right? So it just, his foot came through, the disc was out of his hand already, and then his follow through, the turn of his foot just hit the disc. So foot faults have always been, for me, just kind of a weird thing in disc golf, right? And I think it has to be like so blatant to call it. Like he was completely behind his disc and everything. And I've never called anybody on a foot fault when they've done that. Even if they step on their disc a bit, it's just like you're not getting really an advantage of standing, like stepping on your disc or even kicking it if you're still behind it. Like your line is the same. The only time I would ever call it is we talked after even the commentary, we talked about it, right? It's like Ben always says, if you're on either side, right? If you're still behind your disc, whatever. But if you're opening up your angle on either side of the disc, then yes, call it. That's, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, faults are weird. So,
and I mean, real time, so hard to call. Yeah. But it also, like, for Thomas to get so much flack for it, like, it kind of goes backwards on where the sport is trying to go, where it's like, we want people calling time violations. We want people calling these things and like refereeing the sport how it should be. Yeah. And when a disc goes flying, like it wasn't just that it moved, like it literally flung, like a couple feet. And like, obviously everybody sees that. And it's hard to just like, in that scenario, it's super awkward because like everybody saw it, and it's like you said, you're not getting an advantage. Like you planted by the disc, you like, even if you're planting on the disc, like again, if anything, it's a disadvantage. Like your foot's in a weird spot, or it's gonna slip a little. So it's like, if you're not getting an advantage, why call it? But when it's lead card on camera, a bunch of people watching, and a disc just goes flying, and it's like,
like if we'd shown
obligated to call it.
If we'd shown like 3 replays in real time just of his like foot kicking the disc 3 feet and nobody called it, maybe people in the comments would have been like, oh, look at the disc went flying, I can't believe nobody called this thing.
Exactly.
So I also blame us for not putting in 1 or 2 real time playthroughs, because in stop motion you can see where his foot was, and the exact frame after the disc leaves his hand is when his foot comes through, but you wouldn't have seen it in real time.
People on the card they don't have slow motion. They wouldn't even have a good view of it.
No, it'd be in their peripheral vision. You just see a disc flying at some point. Like you don't know if it was during his run up or not at that point, because it's just there's a disc flying in your peripheral vision.
And like
I probably had the best view of it because I was on feature cam and I was focused on Kalen. I wasn't focused on where he was throwing, so I was focused on him, and I saw the whole thing. And my initial thought was, "Holy foot fault!"
Really?
Well, that's the same thing. Is your instinct? You see a disc go flying, and but then now like afterwards, obviously, Todd, this is coming from an amateur player where I don't see that kind of stuff a lot. And so like after talking to you guys and you're working through how like when you step and like the timing of it is
after you
release the disc, and then I'm like, oh, that actually totally makes sense. But then obviously Thomas being a professional, he should, or probably, he should know this kind of stuff. And I guess while we're talking about him being professional, I think as far as this, all the comments and all the backlash that he might be receiving from this, Thomas is a professional disc golf player. He's not like, I think he's just going to shrug this off. I don't think it's going to affect his mental game.
No.
He's just going to carry through. And like, as far as, he might be a little more hesitant to call something, but at the same time, if you see something that you think is an infraction, you're going to call it.
And like, not to call out, was it Austin that seconded it?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, obviously that's a tough situation as well, because you got Thomas Gilbert looking at you saying somebody needs to second it, and you're on a lead card of the Canadian Nationals. Yeah. But like him saying, yeah, you stepped on it a little, obviously didn't see it. Yeah. Because if you step on it a little, you're not kicking it across the fairway. Yeah. So not to say that he's in the complete wrong, because maybe he saw it out of the corner of his eye and saw the disc move, and it's like, okay. But in that scenario, you should be very confident in what you
should say
what you saw and say, I didn't see it. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying that.
It's tough,
because
man.
Sure, we're all supposed to, but
it's tough. I was at
Brian was standing.
Yeah, well, Brian didn't see anything. He was trying to play it cool, like he knew what was going on, but he clearly didn't see anything. Was just hoping the situation would get resolved. Because I mean, like I'm pretty good on the rules. I'm a lapsed rules official. I try and sort of keep my cards honest, and you just don't watch everything all the time. You miss stuff. But I would 100% rather see Thomas call something. I'd even rather see Austin second something, even if he wasn't 100% sure. I'd rather see that than people being hesitant to call stuff, because that takes the sport in the wrong direction. I was at Big Bear a couple of years ago, and I think I was watching lead card, and somebody teed off from beside the tee pad, and it was on a hole with a big dog leg where that gives you an angle advantage. And like two of the players on the card saw it and looked at each other and looked at me because I was following the card, and nobody said it. And I'm like, I'd love to say something, but I'm just watching this card. Like, this is your card. Go ahead and say something. And everyone was too scared to say anything. And you know who that player was? That was you, Casey. You cheater.
Was it? I was cheating? That was before the tee pads were in at
yes,
Big Bear,
that was when it was just two rocks on a gravel path.
Oh yeah, I'll take everything I can at Big Bear.
Every inch.
But yeah, like that's not a good place for the sport to be either, is when people are just too scared to say anything. So we really need to get people used to calling stuff. Yeah.
Like, make eye contact and
you gonna call it? You gonna call it?
Nobody says anything.
Jesse has something to say.
Well, if we put ourselves on this couch this time last year, I'm sure I was begging for pros to start calling foot faults and time violations, and now we have one missed call, and you're vilifying the person that's actually trying to steer the game in the direction it needs to go. I get that it might be tough on Austin, as you know how much respect Thomas has in Canada, and he starts looking at you like, of course it's a foot fault, and now you have all the pressure in the world on you to second it, and your brain with the logic is going, well, yeah, the disc moved really far. He obviously hit the disc. You have to see it yourself.
And I mean, I think I think my biggest takeaway is the way that Caitlin handled it. Because oftentimes it's, and like we're talking about this intimidation factor, whether Thomas means to or not, he's obviously a figure in the Canadian disc golf world. But if you say it was Thomas that was the one getting called on, and Thomas says, "Oh, are you sure I did?" That's also something factor, and that's probably the factor that you see more often, is like someone saying, "I don't think I did," and then you kind of like back and be like, "Oh, okay, well maybe you actually did it."
But this is what I think, and it's like. No, your thoughts are not allowed in this conversation.
That is true. Yeah.
But the way that Caitlin handled it and was just like, okay, well, what's next? Like, what do we do about this? Let's move on.
I don't think Thomas did it. Like, Caitlin had a crazy lead on everybody at that point. So it's like, people are saying, oh, he only did it because he's 8 strokes behind. I mean, it's like, I think Thomas would have called that in any scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, the vibe from Thomas, it wasn't like this was a call and I expect you guys all to enforce it because we all need to get strokes back. It was like I saw a call, like somebody would need to second
made this call.
It did kind of give off that vibe that he expected nobody else to second it. He was like, I saw it, somebody else has to second it, but it is what it is.
The hardest part of the whole thing was nobody really knew the rules of foot faults, which was sort of sad to see. We literally had to open up the PDGA app and walk everybody through the wording of the call.
I think it was going to be a rethrow, probably.
I think there was one person thought it was a rethrow because they hadn't looked into the rules in a couple of years, and I'm not sure that Austin and Kalen, as I think Austin's a junior player, and Kalen is, I think, also quite young. I'm not sure that they'd ever been in a foot fault situation in a tournament before,
let alone national.
A lead card. Cover,
So we had we all sort of gathered around a phone and read through the rules.
My goodness, man. My fun tangent is the word on the street was that they changed that rule because in the old days you used to get one foot fault and it was a rethrow, or if it, in a putting scenario, if it was a putt, even if you made it, it was a reputt. And the word was that Barry Schultz was the guy who would manipulate it. So once per round, he would get to reputt. So he'd make it very obvious that if that disc was offline, he would step over or do something that would make it a foot fault to get his one reputt per round.
Jesus.
Stretch the rules to the max. And then they made it, nope, you take your penalty and you play from whatever happened.
Yeah, okay.
That's some big brain old man golf.
There was a rule that had a warning built into it or something like that too that got changed where you could get away with something with a warning once around as well. I remember people taking advantage of that too. I don't remember what the rule was though, but
probably was foot fault as well.
I think it was a foot fault.
It might have been foot fault, yeah.
I think you're just thinking of Elijah, Matt.
Maybe. You got to make sure your rules are good in a sport.
Yeah. I think we should. I want to get back to Casey here. You've been one of the. I'll even say I'll go. I was going to say top 5 disc golf, but top 3 disc golf players in Canada for a while now. Is that something you pay attention to? Do you pay attention to your ratings? Do you look at sort of where you rank on the Canadian spectrum at all?
Yeah. I think everybody does. Yeah, I don't. Me and Thomas actually talked about this. Is we don't like that Tim Scott Wood is number 1, right? We don't. He plays 1 tournament a year. Right, gets his rating, and then is just sitting there.
There's people like that all over the world, though.
I know.
You look at the top-rated players in the world, and you just see people that are like, wait, how are they that high rated? And
that Manabu's like that, right?
Yeah. But I mean,
but he's not doing it to dodge a ratings decrease though. He's playing in his home country and area, and he's slaughtering them because he's an extremely good disc golfer. What is he going to do?
I understand that, but when he comes to the States, though, right?
And averages 990.
Yeah.
Not to call him out, but he's played a lot of U.S. tournaments over his career, and Australia, doing a lot of the World Tour back in the day. But I'd be curious to see what he averages outside of his usual tournaments every year, because he still plays 10 to 12 tournaments a year, I think. But when was Kim Scott Wood at his peak touring level? What did he play some pro tours? I honestly haven't paid too much attention.
Yeah, neither have I.
2020 was his biggest year in the last 4 years at 5 events.
Yeah, he's played 4 events in 2021.
I know he played in a couple tournaments I played in Ontario, and he just didn't show up for the last round because he was playing bad.
To dodge the ratings.
Yeah. So, I don't want, like I said, it's I don't want to be that guy to call people out, but it's that's what he does. He's been doing it for the last 3 years, because me and Thomas talked about it. So
by the looks of it, the last 10 years.
Well, I think we got to set up a show match at some point then. I think we could probably fly Kim out here. If we get enough
Get him on
sponsors.
the next Skins, whenever that is.
Yeah.
I think he was signed up for TCO last year.
He was signed up for it, yeah.
I think he signed up for Foxwood this year at least.
Like he must be
Signed
like
up for
good.
He's good. He's good.
He
Yeah.
wouldn't be.
I think it was, I don't remember who I was talking to. It might have been Carrie Neal about Kim Scotwood. I think he's a realtor.
Yeah.
And she was saying that he signs up for events, but then because he's a realtor, he often has to back out last minute because he's got houses to sell.
Yeah. Like 35 career wins on 112 events. That's not a lot.
Do me a favor, Andre. Click in like 2005, 2006. Let's see if he had like a.
That's pretty close to my.
If he had 112 events, we've seen like 6. Yeah, here we go.
Bowling Green.
All right. Well, if you're out in Ontario and you run into Kim out at the course,
probably 0607.
out at Toronto Island or wherever he's playing these days, let him know. You know, he's been called out. We'll organize some sponsors and Casey and Max and Thomas will take him on one-on-one.
Martin Hendel
and Marty Hendel.
Marcus Bellstrom.
You come 4th at World Dubs.
Yeah, 4th in World Dubs in 2000. What year is it?
Barry Schultz.
2007.
Yeah, you don't get to 10, 20, 10, 30 rated without being good, right?
No, yeah. He's a good player. I know that. It's funny talking to Thomas about ratings in Canada. I think it matters to him a bit more than it does to me. Right? It's like I really like I do care, but it's like as long as I'm like top 5 and beating a couple guys that I should beat, then it's like whatever, right? Like and it's fun, right? It's fun beating Thomas all the time, like it is.
Yeah, I'd like to see them somehow weed that out. That you need a minimum amount of tournaments played to like even qualify for a PDJ rating.
They do have it, but I think it's like one tournament a year gets you that now. So I think they need to increase it.
They should up that. But again, what are they? Like, no disc golf ranking system is like in any capacity perfect. I know they're trying to restructure the world rankings to be more accurate, but it's like, you got the Pro Tour rankings, the UDisc rankings, the PDGA rankings, and it's like, which one takes into account what tournaments and everybody asks, oh, well, what are you ranked? Like, what's your rank? And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, what number do I give you? It's like your PDGA.
The best one, obviously, Max. Come on.
I mean, but like none of them really are a good. Like, the only thing I think is like Pro Tour rankings. Obviously, if you're playing on the Pro Tour, because all those guys, those are the tournaments they played. Like A tiers shouldn't affect their ranking for that. But it is hard when you have a lot of really good players that are even in Europe, like they're playing a full tour in the summer, but none of the same tournaments as any of the US players. And it's like, how do you compare that?
Worlds, man. I know people don't like to think of it as the ultimate test and the ultimate crown for the year, but hey, bring everyone to one place and play one tournament and put it over 5 rounds or 6 or 7, and then that's it. That's why I love Worlds. You want to be number 5 in the world? Show up to Worlds and place 5th. You know.
Yeah.
I know it's not like the best measure, but
it's such not like an any given Sunday type of game. You know, like so much that goes into that, and it's not like a football team that depending on what league you're in, you could be playing less than 10 games, and it's about who shows up on the day. This is an aggregate of what, like 70 rounds that's making up some of these guys that are really out there. And then you bet at Worlds, bleep that out, editors. And then suddenly you're like the 60th place player in the world because of one bad weekend. I don't know.
I mean, it is just kind of where the sport is too. It's like when the sport gets to when there's 100 people that are at the top that are just the best in the world, nobody else is going to care about any other ranking other than like whatever, like the Pro Tour ranking. But because it's like so many people call themselves pros, or like PDGA calls yourself a pro the second you accept cash. So it's like, I was a pro when I was 13. So it's like, when, like, are you a professional athlete? When there's not like a cut and dry, this is the professional league, anything else isn't accountable. But again, like, so many guys who do it part-time that are one of the best in the world. Like, it is that sport that's still in its infancy, and people get so good so quick at such young ages that you kind of have to take into account everybody who plays the sport, because you never know who's going to be the next Gannon Burr that's one of the best in the world at 16.
I believe he's 18 now.
No, but I mean, he was.
Yeah,
like,
he broke out at 26 when he was 16.
Like, when was he 1,000 rate? He broke Oscary's record for youngest 1,000 rated player, and I think he was like 14.
Yeah. It's being a professional is a funny thing, because like in Canada we have the CFL, the Canadian Football League, and I think if you watch football and you watch Canadian football, nobody would argue that that's not professional football. But even like, I don't know about today, but not long ago, a lot of those people had to work part-time in the off season still, and like it's the best football league in Canada, one of the top 3 or 4 football leagues in all of North America. They're all professional. They all came from like, D1 college for the most part. And so, and disc golf is, I would argue, a smaller sport than football, maybe.
Arguably.
Yeah. But I'm going to stick to Worlds because, like when we talk about Manabu, like, you say, okay, well, come over to America where the best players play. But, they don't have to travel from Japan and like play in a country where they don't speak the language. Like, jet lag and culture shock are real things. And so it is like, there's no way to get a good apples to apples. Like, you can't just make everybody move to the United States necessarily. So like, if you
try,
like it'd be fair if you made all of the best players go to Japan and play tournaments on his home courses too, where he's got courses that he's played with trees and air and smells that he's familiar with, and the language that he can speak, and they can't. That's the only for. So
you going right for?
They've talked about that on other podcasts, though, right? Like, I don't know if Jesse's talked about this, but that's legit why they said that, like, Japanese and kind of Asian disc golf players, all their ratings are inflated because guys from the States, when Japan Open was going on, they went over there, jet lagged, partying, right? And just
all the Japanese people beat
tournament, all lightweight disc. They're like, what the heck are all these things? And then get their ass whooped by Manabu, right? Or whatever. And like, a couple of guys from the States play good, and then the ratings go up for them, and Manabu is way above. And then when he comes here, he gets beat up. It's the same thing, right? It's like, you go other places, right? It's tough to play good when you go somewhere else. Right?
And the man wasn't allowed to hold a disc that weighed 170 grams until he was 26 years old.
Exactly.
It was against the law.
Yeah.
That's my angle at this, is that I am super in agreement with Casey, and it's probably why I was turning purple, is that like Macbeth would go win the Japan Open. Someone else that was a big name would come in second and third maybe, and then you get a bunch of the sprinkling in of like local and Asian players, and they leech a bunch of ratings from the guys that were partying and didn't take it seriously.
Earn ratings. It still counts. Yeah, it's not leeching, it's earning. They still showed up and made the shots.
Anytime that I've got an A rating point, I leached it, so I can say this.
Yeah, you're no Manabu.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, last year they were pumping Japan Open, and the law has recently changed that you can have full weight discs in Japan.
That's right.
And only Jeremy Colling went over, who is 50th in the world in he didn't do the partying, and he beat those guys and won very handedly.
Yeah.
I think the vacation condition and the discs being different condition gone now, you won't see another Manabu type player make that giant rise because those just won't be opportunities won't be available.
But like,
anymore.
how did Jackie Chen get to 1050 rated?
Beat Manabu by 3 and then only had 2 rounds to make his rating.
Yeah.
Because Jackie's already dropped like 50 points.
Yeah, no, he's like.
Didn't he shoot at 18
again.
down at that tournament though?
Yeah, recently.
Yeah, perfect round at that tournament.
Yeah, I
haven't followed my Jackie Chen enough.
Two eagles, 2 pars, and the rest of birdies.
Yeah.
Like
I saw that too, but it was like
eagle on first, eagle on 18.
Yeah,
crazy.
2 bars.
That is crazy.
It was posted by the DGPT.
Watching that though is like, you wonder how, like, obviously doing that's nuts. Even doesn't matter how easy the course is, right? Like, that's props to him, right, for doing that. But how many tournaments a year does he play, right?
Exactly.
Like how, like, yeah. But it's still like he's doing that in a tournament that is unbelievable, right? Like, not taking away anything away from him. But it's like, even because he came over here too, right? He played like the Las Vegas Challenge and stuff. I think, I don't know how many years ago that was, but like, he got beat up. I remember that. Right. So it was like,
not come when Manabu played World this year? Or I mean, Manabu also played D-Glow, which was weird because it was a playoff event. And I don't know how you get into a playoff event without playing any Pro Tours in the last 2 years.
Highest rated player in the world, baby.
yeah, there you go.
Pulled some cards, but Manabu could have sworn.
Like how you started at the bottom and started scrolling.
Well, I knew he beat me by 2 strokes.
Okay.
Oh, that's why you're looking at the bottom.
Jackie Chen head to head against Kim Scott Wood. Casey, who are you picking?
So Manabu's at 1029 now from 1056 earlier this year.
That feels right. I bet he'd be at like a 1015 to 1020 rated player if he played like with the top players regularly. He's an extremely talented player still.
Definitely. Yep.
So with all this, all this ratings talk with Japan, do you find that, do you think your rating this is a question for both of you guys. When you guys play up here, do you guys feel like your rating is pretty accurate when you guys go down on tour and play down there? Or do we sort of have an inflation as well? Maybe not as much, but...
I think it's different. Like, it's very much just the style of courses.
Yeah.
Like, I think some Canadian courses, very easy to get good ratings. Others, Cranbrook College, very horrible. Very easy to shoot a 960 rated round there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, for me, like, I've always thought my rating's been lower than it's more like just a belief in yourself. Like, obviously, I want to be 1015, 1020, 1030 rated, but it's like, where am I now? And that's kind of where ratings is like, they are skewed a little bit where the most recent 20% counts for double, but it is more or less the sum of your last 12 months. So like, if I feel like I'm a 1020 rated player now, it's going to take six months to actually achieve that. But it's also tough to, with the Manabu situation, play in your own country, be comfortable with these tournaments, be comfortable with the travel, and then expose yourself to something new, different, uncomfortable, awkward. Like, it's like touring in any capacity is a lot of just like time management, energy management, just like to know your limits and
burger management.
Know your limits and like operate within them. And it's like, if you know you're not going to play well after 20 hours of driving 2 days before the tournament, then operate accordingly. Like, make sure you get that extra sleep instead of burning yourself out on the practice rounds. It's like, you always have to just try to emulate that comfortability that you had in your comfort zone. in those local tournaments, which obviously is very hard when it is such a big jump from your Canadian A tiers to a pro tour, where it's like, okay, this is a completely different sport. Like I don't even feel like the same playing the sport. But
I can say, man, like when I went down and played in the whatever 7 Pro Tour events I played down in 2022, right? It's like I got beat up. Right? And I think for me, a big thing is just comfortability on the course. Like practice rounds really don't help me at much. Like I have to play tournament rounds of courses, right, to feel comfortable. And because that's actually the course probably that got me the most was playing Raptors. For the first few years I played Raptors, I was just like, I can't figure this freaking course out. Right? And then as soon as I started playing, I played a couple tournaments there. It's just like, okay, like I know exactly what to do on every shot. And for me is like the thinking part of not having to think what shot you have to throw every single hole makes my comfort level pretty much 100%. I can just go through that course. I know what to do pretty much anywhere I land on the course. And I feel like that's a local thing, right? It's like, that's why playing in tournaments in Canada for me, especially in Alberta and BC, is just like, I just go there. I don't even have to practice round, right? Like I don't need practice rounds. I can just show up and I know what to do right away. But talking about rating again, guys have been leeching off of me for what, 6 years, 7 years now, right? So every time I go to a tournament locally, I'm thinking is like, I have to beat second place by at least 6, 7 strokes. Yeah. Right? So it's just
which you usually
to get
do.
my rating.
So like,
yeah, I haven't leached a single point off of you, Casey.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're gonna let us leech, maybe just like be a little generous, you know.
I have
do something for your country.
I have a very good memory of it must have been a couple years ago playing at the college course. I remember you had a particularly bad round and I shot probably I think my PB at the college, so first 900 rated round, and I definitely leached a couple points off you there.
Cranbrook
College is the course to do it on, though.
Like this whole conversation has boiled down to T-Pat Brad in my head, because I see a scenario where you could show up to a tournament at the college where I wouldn't bat an eye if you told me T-Pat Brad shot 9 down.
Yep, exactly.
I'd believe it in a heartbeat, and I could see a lot of the very good players there. I'm going to include myself at the very bottom of that list. I could walk out there in a tournament and shoot 3 down very easily. Yeah. I've seen Ben shoot a 2 down in a tournament. Yeah. I think Maddie shot +1 there in a tournament before. And now you've got a guy like him who in his sandals, bedazzled jeans, and sideways hat.
2 discs.
No, this man has the greatest plastic collection in the history of humanity, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
And he'll shoot a 990 rated round there. And then if you were to take him to any other course on the entire
he
planet,
would get murdered.
Shoot a +20.
Yeah.
And I think if you can extrapolate that outwards, because Canada and the larger disc golf clubs are so separated, we have a bunch of people that are very good at playing their home course, and then you remove them from that comfort environment, and then they play really, really bad, even if they are a more skilled player.
Yeah.
They don't have that comfort. They don't have the memory to know, just like what you said, what shot they need at the time. They always have to be thinking, and it's not the autopilot refinement that they're used to.
It's also a lot like expectations, and it's like, Casey, you know exactly what you have to shoot to win a A tier in Canada. You go down to the States, and it's like, fuck, Paul Macbeth. You can go 18 down any day. Or like any of these guys, you never know what the hot round's going to be. So it's like, oh, I have to birdie everything, or I have to absolutely maximize every birdie opportunity, and then that's where you get in trouble. That's where you're pushing the envelope. But yeah, you saying, okay, Raptors, I can't figure it out, but then oh, I only have to shoot 10 down to be in the mix. Like only 10 down, sure. But,
only.
but like in your head, think, get 10 birdies or 11 or 12 and have a couple bogeys, like very easily visualized in your mind. But going to, any US tournament, you're just like, what do I have to shoot to be in the mix? Or like, you just kind of are already making problems for yourself without, like, not physical limitations, but you're handicapping yourself by like just head games of what, exactly. What do I have to shoot?
Because the answer is always this disc where I'm aiming. There is no other answer of what do I have to shoot.
Yeah,
it's like
I think I realized that though. Like when by the time we got to Beaver State, I was kind of just like just
it is what it is.
Just play disc golf. Yeah. Like quit thinking about it so much.
But it's so hard not to.
Right?
Like you're finally, I'm going to make this pro tour mini tour for myself. Yeah. I'm going to get the best opportunity or best, not opportunity, experience that I can.
Yeah.
And obviously you want to do well, but then you're always going to do the best when you're just playing the game for the love of the game and just have it come naturally. But it's so hard not to compare yourself or think of what you have to shoot or think of what's the cash line at, what's the worst round of the day going to be, like don't be last or like whatever.
Even on like lead cards that we film, the number of times people have told themselves that they're completely out of it, even in like one of the first 2 rounds, only to be absolutely in it.
Not to name any names.
Not to name any names. But it's like, it should be a lesson for everybody, but I think it's pretty natural for everybody to think that way. Speaking of thinking, Casey, I'm surprised that you said anything about thinking your way through a course, because you shouldn't really ever need to think when all you need to do is throw A3s.
A3s, yeah.
Look at this beauty. If you haven't seen this, prodigydisc.ca, right?
Yes, sir.
prodigydisc.ca.
I don't know if they have any left, but yeah.
I think they got 1 or 2, and I think they even have 1 or 2 left with this gold and red stamp. Holy moly, is this thing pretty. I guess we should say spoiler alert. Everybody's watched Nationals at this point, but if you haven't, heavy spoilers. You won Canadian Nationals, and look at this. Oh my God. A3s, which is fitting. Was it just A3s, or did you get some PA3s with that as well?
P-Model S's.
P-Model S's, okay. So if you like putters, or if you like Casey's most dependable approach disc, check it out. You threw that orange A3, I remember at the BC Open in that final round, on almost every hole, on that, especially during the back 9.
Probably 12 of the 18 holes I threw that disc,
Yeah. How important is it to have a disc, or a mold, but like I think in your case specifically a disc, that just sort of does all the things that you need it to do and you know exactly what it's going to do?
Yeah, for me, I've always liked the approach disc, right? Like it didn't matter what I threw. I threw Justices, I threw Gators, right? It's like all those discs. I had, what's the one, Harps, I threw those a lot. Rats, like kind of any of those kind of approach, mid-range putter discs. I've always liked them. I've always had really good touch on my forehand and stuff, so that's kind of always been a staple in my bag to have one of those discs. So but have one that you can depend on every single time when you're kind of nervous and you're like, well, I know where this is going to go. Doesn't matter if I'm nervous or not, right? It's like, it's nice to just kind of pull that out of your bag and have confidence all the time.
Safety blanket.
Can I guess what yours is? Tactic?
I don't think so, actually.
It's that green, that turquoisey Sky God.
Yeah.
Oh. I've seen you hit the basket more times than not, I think, with that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I don't think forehand is my safety blanket because, like, I don't know about you, Casey, but like if it's raining, I'm scared to throw forehand. Like if I don't have superior belief in my grip, it just makes me a little nervous. So definitely, probably that Sky God 3.
trying to think of the discs that are most synonymous with you, and probably that Sky God for sure. And dude, you are an MD3 ripper.
Yeah.
Maybe above anything else I would put your name against. Which is weird because I don't think the Pro Tour lines up with a lot of mid-range shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, you throw that disc well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
At our little baby courses anyway.
Speaking of baby courses, Casey, how many 18, and we've talked about 18 downs a lot, how many 18 downs do you have at Idlewild?
I don't have any. I probably got like 12, 17 downs. No 18s. I actually have never got an 18 down there.
The elusive perfect
course. Yeah.
I've never even played Idlewild, so that's a sin in itself.
So you have 0 as well.
Doubles course record holder.
Yeah, Jesse.
Congratulations.
19.
So I don't want to miss this opportunity because we have the winner and the third place finisher from Canadian Nationals here on the podcast. And it was...
This is the highest rated podcast we've ever had.
Yes. So, Max, I want to go back because we had you on coverage in the first round, and you didn't have your best round ever. You shot a 996 rated 62 in the first round. And I think you probably had pretty high expectations going into it. And we've talked about how people will rule themselves out of a tournament after the first round a lot of the time. But you, in all of the tournaments that we were following you, not just in Canada, but in the US too, that doesn't seem to be how you play. How do you approach a second and a third round so well? Because that was kind of your calling card, was like you seem to get better and better throughout every tournament that you played, to the point where you blew the doors off the final round and were maybe like one shot going one way or another from being in a playoff or winning nationals this year.
Yeah, bogey on 7. I ran a putt from the bottom, the low hill onto that elevated rock basket at Dragon Hills and got a roll away and instant bogey. And like in my head, I shouldn't have run that putt, but I think I started a little slow, parred 2 and 3. And then at that point I was just like, I have to birdie out to win. So I was just like full run mode on everything. So like obviously hindsight is what it is. But yeah, like it's always kind of been my calling card is like slow starts. Ever since like my first year playing tournaments in Sweden, we would be playing C tiers and I'd be playing the course blind the first round. And honestly, my first tournament in Sweden, I was like 878 rated because I was last year of playing disc golf while I was like 13. So I was like inactive for 5, I don't even know, what was that? 4 years. And yeah, just laughably low rated compared to the field, and shot 996 and like a 970 rated round and got second. And everybody was like 878 rated. And one of the, like, he's actually almost the reason I was sponsored by Discmania in the first place. Lasse Jonsson, one of the higher rated players in Sweden at the time. Got second to him. And that whole year it was like, you'd go to the tournament, maybe play a couple holes like that morning, and it'd be a 2-round, 1-day C tiers, and kind of feel out the course the first round, and then I'd shoot like 8 strokes better the second round. So I don't know if it is just kind of a mental thing, and maybe just an expectation thing where first round I'm like more thinking of what I should be doing, and then the rest of the rounds I'm just like, well, I'm out of it. Or not that I'm out of it, but like less pressure on myself and just kind of forget about the results. And it's not been like a very conscious thing for me of like, I know what the problem is, but for whatever reason, I almost always start a tournament poorly. And like even Worlds this year, and bookended it having a bad round in the last one, but I was way off of the cut for Worlds. and then played, I think, 3, 5, or 6 down rounds to make the cut by 1. And at that point, I think Thomas had just missed the cut as well. So I was the only Canadian to make the cut, and I was happy about that. And maybe took the foot off the gas a little bit and just like kind of already claimed a little victory in myself, and then just bombed the last round. But yeah, I can't even really put my finger on it why it is that way. But I've never been a person to like quit just because it's not going well. Like, you're there, might as well, like, you're always going to learn something. You're always going to figure things out, and it's a waste to just quit on a tournament.
This is so interesting to me, and I was having this conversation with somebody else, but do you guys feel like disc golfers are more perfectionist and focused on not making mistakes than in some other sports? Because I just asked Max about playing so well in the final round, and the first thing he said was, yeah, my starts aren't very good. If you listen to commentary for nationals, in the middle of like winning and walking off the 18th green and on his way to pick up a giant check on commentary, Casey, you were talking about how it didn't feel great, and you made a couple of mistakes in the final.
About missing.
Yeah, and disc golf, more than ball golf, is at the highest level is more birdies than pars. And so is that the biggest mental challenge in disc golf, is like not focusing on mistakes so much? Because that seems to sort of be the prevailing attitude when you get to that level, when if all of these holes are birdieable for a lot of you, and like I said, for a lot of these courses, you're birdieing more than you're parring or worse. So is disc golf like a very avoid mistakes oriented kind of game?
You might be like desensitized to success or like birdies. So you're saying like, most people aren't going to boast about, oh, these sick birdies I got. They're going to start off with the putts they missed.
Sick birdie.
And all that. And it's like, it might just be that sensitized part of the game where you're so used to seeing, and like even hole-in-ones, like they're just way more frequent than regular golf. Mm-hmm. So you're just expected to have those highlights, to make a lot of birdies, to eagle and all that. And when you do make a bogey or a double bogey, it's a bit more jarring. So yeah,
I totally agree with that. Yeah, it's just for myself, I wouldn't say, like, I don't know, it's hard, because when I played that last round of nationals, like in my head, walking up to the 18th green or 18th tee box, I was like, I just gave away 5 strokes, like legit 5 strokes in the last, after hole 12. And it's just, to me there, because like I had 2 strokes on Kalen after the par 5. And then it was just kind of like, well, like why would you let them back in it after that point? Because if you would have asked me if I just like birdied a couple and parred the rest, I would have been totally fine. But it's like I bogeyed 3 of those last 5 holes. And in any tournament, ball golf, disc golf, I feel like a guy would be like, I won that tournament because everybody else messed up more than I did. Right? And that's why I felt like that. And I still do feel like that. I know it's but I think, like Matt, you saying, is like you get to this certain level of play, and when I did that on the course, I felt that I was letting myself down, right? And I think anybody in any professional sport would feel like that. But like Max said, is I think people talk about their mistakes more in disc golf. And I totally agree with that. And yeah, I don't think it's a good thing either, because I think it brings like a negative thing the sport, but
that's why you get so many
like
piss pants on those lead cards. Maybe.
Yes, exactly. And I think, but when disc golf is like that, I think you need people to understand where it's like it will happen, but you need those people at like marshals and stuff to step in. And it's disc golf is like we always say this is so small still, right? And there's just not enough knowledge of people and how you should play and what you're going to do. Is I don't know. There's a lot.
I think a lot had to do with like the timing as well, like the momentum. Like look at Kalen's tournament. Like if he had done like the opposite, started off how he ended it, he would be on the like over the moon with his performance. But just because he had that crazy hot start and then let it slip gradually, he probably thinks so little of that tournament. And like he got it. Like I think he tied me for third. It was Breeze and then big tie for third. But and like I'm sure he still feels good about that performance. But in his head, I'm sure like he was at a 7-stroke, 6-stroke lead on the field after round one, and like still held on to that lead for so long. So it's like, and you with that like limp to the finish, but got it done. Like I can definitely feel that like BC Open, you probably feel way better about like it was a national championship that you won, but you feel better about the BC Open. And like that might just be because of the finish you had.
For sure.
And like sure it was some high profile players there as well that maybe Canadian Nationals didn't feel like you were beating as deep of a field, but you birdied the last 9 holes and won by 5. Where it's just that kind of momentum thing or how you finished a tournament. It's so hard to just take in a tournament as a whole. Like you forget so much forgettable moments that you have to just kind of reflect on it and say, piece it out. And like Kalen played an incredible tournament. And should be very proud of his performance, but it's in his head. I let that lead go.
Yeah, the first hole and the 54th hole count exactly the same on your scorecard. Exactly. But they sure don't feel the same.
I will say that at my level, I definitely remember my good shots more than my bad shots because I shoot way more bad shots than good shots. So.
I don't know if we talked. Sorry, I don't know if we talked about it.
Super quick.
Paul McBeth
slips away.
Okay, you go ahead.
No. Jesse's going.
We got a bit of a lag here. Jesse, go.
Sorry, it's okay.
After
my mental game has crumbled, so I'm gonna kill you. See, my mental game crumbled just on podcasting now. I took a big reflection of this at the end of the season. And I think it's because when you get a birdie, you're not excited because that is things going to plan. It is exactly what you expected. Nothing went awry. But when you bogey a hole you think you should birdie, it sticks out because it's an instant departure from what's expected. And it's kind of burned into you that way. Yeah. Maybe different at different skill levels. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the biggest thing. And that's why people end up in these mental snowballs. Because even if you get a birdie on the next hole, it's still not out of the plan, and you're still thinking about the mistake that you made here, and you're going to carry that with you until you've gotten far enough away from it that you can finish it off. Mm-hmm. And when that's at the end of your tournament and making a difference in the placing especially, it is an even bigger departure from that expectation and something that can hurt you even worse, right? No one cares if they birdied or bogeyed or parred third hole of the tournament in a 3-round tournament. You probably don't even remember. But if you've done something negative to yourself that affects the way you finish in a time frame close enough to that end, you will blame your 7th place finish on the double bogey on hole 16 of the final round, when really you could have picked up 10 more birdies in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad I let you talk first, because we were basically going to say the same thing. I always wanted to talk to Paul McBeth about shooting 18 down, because my hunch is, after he finished that round, he was probably like, yeah, that's about how that should go. I bet he feels worse shooting less than 18 down than he feels great shooting 18 down. Because like you said, those are like I play my worst at my home course tournament because I've birdied at some point every single hole on that course in every pin location, and I've aced one of them. And so yeah, like you said, it's like all you have is memories of it going better, and while you're playing, you're just thinking, well, that was worse than 2 weeks ago. That was worse than last Monday. So yeah, it's like it's a lot of memories of playing it better.
There's one other thing I want to bring up because we've talked a lot about other sports that we've played and things like that. There's one thing about golf in particular is the permanence and immediacy of your mistakes. Mm-hmm. Right? The split second lapse in your judgment or performance is immediately reflected on your scorecard. Casey will probably connect with this one more than the rest of you guys, but like if you're playing D in hockey and you pinch and you get beat, you've got the next 20 seconds to pedal your butt as hard as you can, and you do have an opportunity to fix your mistake. Yeah. Or in like racing, bikes or running, if you have a bad split or you've been dogging it, there's still a chance that you can find some inspiration and make up for that mistake. But as soon as you think that you're going to hit that mail slot with that putter, make that approach, and you hit the first tree in front of you, there is no way to fix it. And you know that you're better and you think that you should. There is never that secondary opportunity like a lot of the other sports we grew up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't. For myself, like I think my bounce back percentage is probably pretty good, because I remember talking to like the guys on the Pro Tour, like Gannon and all those guys, and Kevin Jones and stuff, and it's for at that level. I feel like for me, you just forget about what you did on the last hole. Like I can really block that out. I feel like that's probably what helped me at nationals the most. Like going into 17 after bogeying that stupid hole, right? And then getting on to 18 and then have a drive, right? And then throw a good upshot, get onto the dance floor, and then make that putt. It was just stepping up to that putt. I said it on the commentary where it was just like, and as soon as Brian missed that, it was just like, well, like I'm going to make this putt, right? It's like I wasn't thinking, like I didn't have those last 5 holes in my memory at all. It's like I'm not thinking about that, and I think a lot of disc golfers coming up are like, oh, like like Jesse said, is like you should have done this on the last 2 rounds, or the thinking is like, oh, I missed those 3 putts on 16 or 15, 16, 17. Right? For me, it was just like, well, I still have an opportunity. Like I was pissed off going into 18, but as soon as I threw that drive, that's all that mattered. Right? It's like wherever that drive ended up, I had to get on the green. Right? So
it was very noticeable.
It would be cool to actually have a bounce back percentage in disc golf because there is so much of that. Right? It's like if somebody does get a bogey, what do they do on the next 2 holes? Like if it does snowball or it doesn't snowball. I think that would be cool.
It was super noticeable, and I wish we'd got more of it on camera, that like when Kalen started having some tough holes, and some of it was mistakes, some of it was bad bounces, but either way, he had in the middle of that final 9, he was like a wreck mentally. He had, and he might have told me that he'd got like 2 hours of sleep the night before. And so because like, he hasn't been in that position, and that's just a thing that comes with experience. But like the bad hole feelings stayed with him for 5 or 6 holes, 4 or 5 holes before he was able to like get himself back out of it. And I was talking with Ben Loggins about it, and I was like, with you, Casey, it was about the length of time that it took to walk from 17 to 18 and tee off. And it was like that was probably the most out of sorts that I saw you all year while we were filming you. And it was maybe 2 minutes at most.
Yeah, I was that was probably the most pissed off apart from Harvest Huck. That was the most pissed off I was all year. Was that walk from 17 to 18 was I was not happy.
I guess I like this all kind of leads to I think is a very valuable question is what sort of, I don't want to call it training, but what kind of advice can you give to up and coming players to sort of channel that mentality and get used to it? Is it just experience? Is that the only thing that can lead to those kind of things? I mean, we can use Kalen as an example. He's obviously he's done this. He's going in. If he's in the same situation next year, he can kind of draw on that experience and kind of try to keep his cool. But is that the only way, or is there like sort of any mental practices that you guys can do, or
Yeah, I would say there's definitely mental stuff. Like, sports psychology is huge. You hear about the like Macbeth and Ricky and all those guys. They do sports psychology all the time. But for guys like just who play in Canada, right? And the 10, 20, 10, 15 rated guys, I would say experience is probably the biggest thing. It's like if you're in that day to day, playing like on lead card in the last round, right? And doing that is like, because I've done it for 8-10 years now in Canada, and it's you can't replicate that anywhere, right? You have to be on and feel that pressure, right? Because like even at Canadian Nationals, I remember I was like, if I was Kalen right now, I would be shitting my pants. Right? I remember thinking that, and it was just like, he's played for 2 years, 3 years. I don't know how long he's played for, but he's never been like I assume he's been on lead cards like that, but he's never been in a spot where you can win a tournament, that big of a tournament in Canada, right? So for me, I didn't feel nervous, which is kind of crazy to say. Is like I was more worried about what I was doing on the course. Like I'm not worried about anybody else. So I like, to answer your question, I feel like the experience is the biggest thing.
It's hard to replicate. Like obviously the best is to get that experience, but obviously you can't play in a final round of a national championship very often. But I think it comes down to what kind of person you are or your sports background, because I think you can get the same kind of feeling, even though it's not like an individual sport but just that competition at the highest or at a high level and like wanting to succeed, and how you deal with setbacks or how you deal with failures. Coming even down to like, I don't know if you can compare like board games or video games to that, but just how you handle your emotions and all that, because that's what it comes down to down the stretch, because everybody knows their discs, knows what kind of shots they're capable of, but how you handle yourself on those final 18 holes where, Casey's done this for 8-10 years. Kalen, obviously this was a huge thing for him that in his eyes, maybe like, I'm sure he still thinks this could happen every year from here on out. Like I'm that guy. And he should think like that. But when you don't have that repertoire, then it's like, oh, this is the first time I've ever done this. Maybe it won't come again. And all those things come creeping in your head where, like you said, you don't even think about it. You're just thinking this is business as usual. But it's like, I've never had any formal sports psychology work done, but I'm sure it helps. And I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from it. So I can't speak towards it.
I wonder what their hourly rate is.
Yeah. It's huge in golf in general. Like you see disc golfers reading self-help books for ball golfers about how to get their mental game wrapped around their putting or something. Read 300 pages on a different sport just to try and get a slight edge. Huge.
the number of disc golfers that have read what I think is called The Mental Game of Tennis or something like that, it's very high. I would also point out, and I'm not ever going to give advice to people with the mental game because it is by far the worst part of my performance in any sport I've ever played. I have the opposite of the clutch gene, but people who are having a hard time with it, find yourself a caddy. One of the problems, Casey, you do fine on your own, but like a lot of players, it's really nice having a second person there. I'm not talking about necessarily game planning, but just like a friendly face to talk to. One of the problems that I think Kalen had was he was on an island out there. I think Joe had a caddy and Brian had a caddy for that final round, and they had people to talk to about stuff, and Kalen was just out there just swinging against the entire world. And then when he was getting closer to the finish, his friend Jake was done his round and was able to catch up with the card. And I think that helped him turn his round around near the end there too. And just like not advice, but just somebody there that you're comfortable with talking to, I think probably helps a lot in those types of situations.
It just gives you some grounding, if nothing else, right? There's always something to come back to.
I remember Jesse, actually, one of the first Alberta Open tournaments we had in Calgary. We were at, that par 5 at Lloyd, right? And I was like 230 feet out, and I grabbed my fairway driver, and Jesse walks over to me. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to throw this 100 feet past the basket. It was downhill. And then I disc down to a mid-range and I put it right under the pin. So no, it's huge, man. Like that caddy thing, and especially if somebody knows your bag, right? It's like it's huge. Especially because that was one of the first tournaments where I was just like, oh man, I can win this tournament, right? It's like at the Alberta Open. So yeah, it was. Yeah, shout out to Jesse.
I mean, heat of the moment stuff. It's like so many times you're just like, what was I even thinking trying that shot? And it's like, if you could have somebody that is like, watching that shot, and you're like, they could tell you what the heck you're doing before you throw it, then you're saving strokes at every tournament. So it's like, I do think we'll get there when everybody has maybe not full on caddy, but somebody there that is at least, if it's a mental help or actually giving advice, I think that'll obviously creep into the disc golf world once it gets a bit more normalized.
It's going to be interesting to see how it goes, because as the now mentioned fantastic caddy that I am, I think there's a style to approach every player with as well. If we're playing casual, I would probably jabber your ear off the whole time, but I think I gave Casey 3 pieces of advice over 2 tournaments. Didn't need any more. It's unnecessary to be distracting. But a trained person, it'd be so interesting to see what the highest level of a trained caddy would be. If it's all psychology, if it's actually someone that's going to tell you their shot suggestion, pick a disc for you and everything, and they're guiding the ship, and you're just the physical aspect of it.
I think that's it just depends on the player, and honestly probably the event too. It just depends on the mental space of the player, because I mean, probably it's funny actually. You caddied for me and Fernie, and I was doing so bad, and I think it actually just I'm just not used to having a caddy, and it just it made me play worse, because I was like, oh, Jesse's watching me now. And it's just an added tiny little bit of pressure. And that's just a me thing. But, now that I've had a caddy, I'm like, it's going to be growth next time you caddy for me. And I'm sure it'll go a lot better. Yeah.
Jesse's an intimidating dude.
Well, I could tell that you're nervous. I didn't give you any advice. I just wanted to be your friend and hang out.
Apparently that was too much.
But I agree. The one person I hate having caddy for me is Caitlin, because and it's maybe I'm just now psychoanalyzing myself.
Because you want to make out with her all the time.
Yeah, I don't want to see the person that I care, who I value the opinion the highest in my life, see me do something wrong.
Oh, that's so sad, Jesse. She's proud of you no matter what, buddy.
You guys can caddy for me whatever you want, because I don't care. But that one just bugs the heck out of me.
I don't think you'll ever let me caddy for you ever again, because every time I caddy for you, I try and get you to smile at some point during the round, and you don't seem to enjoy that very much.
That's because, well, it's the whole talk we just had. That was at Nationals, and I started, and I knew, and I still know, the minute I walked onto hole 1, I was the best AM player in that division, but I got 18 down brain really bad, and that's a great way to shoot like +3, +4 every time, and my own expectations caved in on me, and it totally ruined everything. And by the time you guys came to caddy, it was the 3rd round. In my head, it was over, and it was like, because I'm not playing well enough to be entertaining for the people following me, I need to do something to entertain them, make a crazy shot, do this other thing. It just like more stuff for me to deal with. I threw a Rhino roller in front of everybody, I think, actually.
You went for an astronaut turnover shot, a hyzer, like one of those 90-degree hyzer flip shots. You're like, no, man, I swear this worked this one time. And I was like, all right, man, well, my goal is for you to have fun out here, so I'd love to see it.
Buckle up.
I was
Didn't go well.
so hurt that didn't work. I practiced throwing that shot ever since. I hit band on, was that 16 or 15 at the college, the hard one?
Yeah.
Off the tee with that astronaut throwing a spike hyzer. After that, I was like, I need to learn how to make this do the thing. Yeah, back to the caddying thing and all the mentals and stuff. It's a precarious place to be, because I think the best caddy for you is someone that knows you really deeply on a personal level too, to pick up the little quirks and this and that. Like the second time I caddied for Casey, I think we were like friends in the vaguest of terms, and I slapped him and gave him his bag back. Do you remember that at BC Open? You had the worst start I'd ever seen. I wanted you to do well. I watched you like 3-putt or something disgusting on the 3, and I was like, this is not the guy that I know only 50% of the way of knowing, but this is not him. Give you the wake up. I think I gave you your bag back. Figure it out and go do it, and it worked. Thank God. But I'm thinking of all the other people I've played with, and if I gave them that wake up without knowing them well, go the absolute opposite direction.
Like
gong.
Snowball,
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about mental game, and one of the biggest, I'd say, impacts on mental game is spit outs. And so I think now's a good time to bring up our sponsor, because DiscGolfPark.
Good way to avoid spit outs.
Yeah, good way to avoid spit outs.
There you go.
It's a unique disc golf course concept developed in Finland in 2005. It is based on the idea of building sports facilities in an environmentally friendly way. DiscGolfPark provides great experiences for players of all skill levels, from beginners to professionals, and our main ideology is to introduce disc golf to new audiences. There are several options to suit any kind of course, and all official disc golf parks include professional and safe course design, Disc Golf Park Pro targets that help you with spit outs, tee pads and tee signs, and an info board to welcome players to your course. The Disc Golf Park World concept consists of multiple courses designed for different types of players. Multi-golf is a new fun activity for the whole family, and in multi-golf, 3 forms of golf are played: foot golf, disc golf, and park-style pitch and putt. School Disc Golf Park offers students a new and exciting form of exercise for the physical education classes. A course suitable for schools can be designed even in a small area, for instance, a schoolyard. Furthermore, the costs of School Disc Golf Park are lower than those of regular disc golf parks. They also offer private and group lessons or clinics. For more information, check out the website discgolfpark.com and request a quote today. And there is a little disclaimer here at the bottom: disc golf parks cannot guarantee no spit outs.
Nicely done. I've never had the desire for the multi-golf part of it. The pitch and putt and the foot golf.
Yeah.
I just saw that Avery was putting in a course at Turtle Bay Resort in Hawaii. And I thought, you know what? Going out barefoot beside the ocean, beautiful, kick a soccer ball around with a drink in your hand and a couple buddies. It'd actually be a very fun casual time.
I think it's I was thinking about this, and mostly just because we are looking to hopefully get a course here in Invermere at some point. I think multi-golf is kind of one of those things that if you're not sure if your municipality or whatever doesn't want to put a disc golf specific course in, multi-golf might be a good pitch, especially if there's a good soccer community kind of thing. It's something that I don't know. It's something I was thinking about.
Yeah, I think that you're right, and I think it might be a way to grow disc golf in like really soccer heavy countries. Because when Caitlin was at law school in the UK, she looked on UDisc for a course. There was one a half-hour bus ride away. She showed up, and it was it was not a multi-golf, but just strictly a foot golf course that someone had decided to put on UDisc. She had her bag of discs, and the people at the place looked at her like, I mean, yeah, you can go throw those out there if you want. Sure, go have fun. But in a place like the UK where like soccer is king, can you imagine if those foot golf courses just had a little chains above them? Yeah. I'm sure just the extra eyes crossover would be so big.
Yeah.
Scheming time.
It's not as much fun. If you're wondering, I'm a disc golfer, should I try foot golf? I'm going to tell you, I love the idea of installing multi-golf parks, and I agree with all of what you said, but foot golf sucks compared to disc golf, man.
I feel like if you were a really good soccer player, it could be fun. Like a Henrik type. Like how far do you think Henrik can kick a soccer ball?
Far enough.
Yeah, far enough. Hundreds of feet. What? Goalies can usually kick 3/4 of a soccer field.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
You're allowed to drop kick and foot golf, but
no, it's just kicking, and I've done both poorly before, and disc golf was still way more fun.
Okay.
Foot golf's crazy looking though. The guys that are like taking it serious.
Yeah.
It's a weird, like, the combination of golf and soccer. Just it's so jarring to see somebody like lining up a putt and then go up and kick a ball, and it's just like, what is going on? Like, it's such a weird visual.
I think it would share more. We can get off foot golf after this too. It probably shares a lot more with conventional golf because it's probably at a high level all about putting spin on that ball, manipulating that flight and how it moves on the ground after.
Yep. Draw, fade, backspin. But discs go in two different directions, and you can throw them two different ways, or overhead, or roller. It's still better. We're
not a foot golf podcast.
Coming soon.
We still do have a
Podcast
dream.
Network.
We've always wanted to do not always, for about a year now, we've always wanted to do the King of Golf or Queen of Golf tournament where you play all three in one day. And we still have dreams of doing this someday. Unfortunately, foot golf courses seem to keep getting removed for lack of use. So we will find one of these multi-golf parks and host a king and queen of all golfs.
I do like what
someday.
GK Pro is doing with the all golf, disc golf battle.
Yeah,
I thought that was really good.
Cool.
And like,
Yeah,
I'm a
they took our idea.
Regular golf. But yeah, it's cool to see. Yeah, disc golfers swing a club and actually swing it good.
I've been thinking of trying to get just the friends of ours out to play Nipika Radium Springs in the same day back to back and do something like that. Get our like super disc golf friends, give them a handicap on the regular golf side, and our super golf friends a handicap on the disc golf side, and see who's the hero at the end of it.
Jesse, speaking of Nipika, are they still in to run a tournament this summer or winter?
I went there 3 weeks. I went there 3 weeks ago, talked about it, and they said, no, again.
No.
Yeah, I had a little talk.
Again?
No weddings, just busy.
Oh, yeah.
I guess. Yeah. They said that things are booking out to May already. I said, well, then let's book it for the end of the year where it's not booked. And they kind of yeah, next year. It's too bad because that course really deserves more eyes on it.
Yeah.
Oh, Matt.
So we
showing this again.
We showed this again for the audio listeners. I'm holding a disc up. This disc is 750 Glimmer Glow. That's all of the things. That's special plastic, that's metal flakes, and that's glow. And two-toned. God, that's stand. You know, Andre, I changed my mind. I changed my mind. I'm keeping that one. I've got 2 Rocket Bear. Can we just give away one of these classic Rocket Bear joints
Yeah, there you go.
from Casey instead? I got my name written on them. All right.
An awesome stamp.
We'll give away the A3. What do you think?
I think we should give away the A3, and I think we're gonna make it a social media post. You have to go over to Instagram, follow Chunk Disc and Park Pro, and then I think we should give our podcast listeners a bonus entry. So if you go on there, you have to follow both of us, and you have to comment and tag a friend. And
How about you have to tell me how many fingers I'm holding up.
I was gonna say Casey should give us a secret word, and that has to be in the comment as well.
Well, wouldn't everybody just see the comment and then? I don't know how these things work.
Yeah, you're right. Probably will.
Secret word right now?
Yeah, give us a secret word.
Listen? Okay.
Yeah.
A3.
Nice.
All right.
I like
That's
it.
good, because then people will just think you're saying like, oh, that's an E3. I like that. All right. So podcast listeners, bonus entry if you give the comment of A3. So head over to our socials. It'll be up by the time this podcast runs, and you can win yourself that beautiful disc. I have one question for you guys as we close this out, and it's I want to get this question in before it gets too far from it. It's a who did it better? And we had 2 somewhat controversial announcements happen recently, with Nicholas pretending that he was leaving Discmania, but actually just getting promoted. And then we had the MVP erasing their social medias with the blue things that kind of got annoying after a little while. So I want to know who did it better.
What is the MVP thing?
Like
Erasing.
They deleted all their Instagram posts.
And then they post 3 photos every for I don't know what it was, 6 or 7 days.
Yeah, that made a big
and then
picture.
they made people think it was for the Pixel, but then it was secretly actually about Eagle all along.
Yeah.
I don't follow
we should make this
stuff.
should make it not a who did it better, who did it worse. Let's say that.
I like being sponsored by Discmania. We don't want me to say this, but I don't like how the Nicholas thing was handled. I don't know if it was on purpose, and probably no one will know.
He has said in an interview that it was absolutely on purpose.
Wow.
Okay. I think he had known for months that he was resigning.
I hate it. Like, fair enough. You want some attention, but I don't like rewarding that kind of publicity stunt
behavior.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Well, especially since it was. Day, so.
Yeah, but he's burned so many bridges. So
yeah,
because in my head, I couldn't picture Nicholas leaving, and him announcing that was just like, whoa. And like I just think of the kids that just look up at him as an idol. And like maybe they have all of his gear, diehard Discmania fans. They hear that or see that, and they're like, "What? He's leaving?" And then they're
he definitely made some kids cry.
Yeah, or even like, what if they just sell all their stuff? And it's like, "Oh, just kidding, I'm staying." It's like,
just how long was that? How long was it before he posted that he was on the team?
Weeks.
It was like 2 weeks.
Really?
At least 2 weeks. Yeah.
Wow.
He had announced, at least 2 weeks, because he had announced it and everybody was waiting for it, and he was essentially the last one to announce it. So yeah, not a fan. MVP. I don't think they did all that. Like, I don't think it was all that flashy. But I mean, yeah, it doesn't really need to be when it is that big of a signing to get the eyeballs. So. Like, fair enough, you want you want attention on your moves, but I don't think making everybody think you're leaving and then just saying, "Oh, I'm getting promoted." It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But congratulations to Nicholas Andelot for being awarded the Sky Team promotion. Definitely deserve it.
Well, if I'm next on the couch, I'm going to go the opposite direction. Mainly because MVP had a decent budget for that. They wiped their socials. They put a bunch of effort into it. And it wasn't a surprise to anybody. It was kept under wraps so poorly that everyone knew Eagle was going for weeks. Right? Like, when they announced it, I went, next slide on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't care anymore. And I don't think they got the value they needed to out of the announcement for the amount of effort they put into it. Like, on a technical who did it worse, I think they did it worse. At least with Nicklaus's announcement, it was a surprise because he made it believable enough that he was leaving.
But it was a fake surprise because you made a post that, like, obviously made it sound like you were leaving. Like, you don't say, had all these achievements, however, I'm turning a new page in my career. You don't say however. You say your due diligence and say, and I'm looking forward to the future, making an announcement soon. Like, you just don't put the doubt in everybody's eyes. But
we're talking about it, so.
But how much is that worth? I don't think Nicklaus or Discmania gains anything from, we talked about him. But
I think for the amount of effort, they gain a lot more eyes on Nicklaus. Because we talked about this earlier today. I don't think anybody in North America cares about Nicklaus Antila unless they're seeing him on the lead card directly in front of them. And when the TV turns off, they don't care anymore again. So it's very hard for that position for Nicklaus to like
manufacture
hype, right? Yeah. He's not a hypey person. Gannon's been a troll since day one when he's doing the I'm going to the choice of champions to be dynamic. Like, it's par for the course and it fits the brand. For Nicklaus to do something flowery like that, you go, what? Yeah. Who wrote this for him?
Yeah.
I don't like it either because it is just straight up bait for bait's sake. But when you're not somebody that has that kind of glitter around them or other external hype, you need to do something to get eyes on you, and it costs them nothing, right?
Imagine doing that for your normal job, like going on Facebook and be like, I've really enjoyed working at Carrington Homes these last 5 years. I'm really looking forward to my next step, though. And then on January 1st, being like, back at Carrington Homes for another year.
VP, baby, let's go.
Your friends would unfriend you so fast if that was your social media.
I also just hate it because Jesse was right.
Yeah.
Called it from the beginning.
I called it on the podcast.
Yeah. Like, we talked about this, and like, I just didn't see it in the cards where, like, maybe it's just because I wouldn't do it myself in that way, but like, I just don't see the value. Because, like, Nicklaus, he's a top guy in Europe. Like, I don't think you need
that extra.
He's on lead cards in the US. Like, he's a big name. Even though, he's not talked about like for being a 1030 rated player. He's not talked about in the same way as anybody else, but neither is any European player. Like, until they're like winning consistently in the US, nobody's going to care. But I just don't think, maybe I'm leaving, maybe I'm not. I don't think that's going to change everybody's mind of, Nicklaus, I want to pay attention to Nicklaus because he's a troll.
No, and I don't think he wrote it in a trolly way, and that's also the reason I called it. Is because I read it and the grammar told me that was not definitive that he was totally gone. And when you attribute a bit of like the Finn English second language, he doesn't really have that much ability to be very whimsical about kind of leaving you this here and that here. So I don't know.
He absolutely meant to imply that he was leaving the company, and he said he did it on purpose so that people would talk about him.
Yeah, like I said, not definitive, but definitely implied.
Oh, man.
I don't know. The rest of the market didn't tell me that there was a place for him that was like, because, like I said, turn the TV off and you didn't care if you were North American. So it had to be someone that had deeper roots in Europe. Just going to be them or Prodigy. I didn't think he would be going to Prodigy. and the people that had the pockets for him. MVP was already given the bag to Eagle, which we had already guessed, and it was really heavily thought that Clemens was going to go to Discraft and take up what kind of space they had left.
Discraft has kind of broken that mold, though, by the star power that they have. And, like, depending on what they're paying every player, like, that's always debatable. But you kind of just, after, Paul and Chris Dickerson and all AB, all these big guys going there, you kind of just assume they have like endless pockets. So it's like, I just kind of chalked up the whole, like, Discraft seems like the only company that is like purposely pushing the European, like with the whole Paul tour and all that, and picking up these small signings before. I just saw that as a very viable place, because who knows, maybe Discraft finds the budget to fit him in, or constructs his contract where it's not actually costing them actual capital. But yeah, is what it is.
I'll give you, when we can move on to somebody else after this, but I'll give you more credit. Because last time we talked about this, I thought that it was a problem that Chris Dickerson wasn't getting enough spotlight for how good a player he was at Discraft. You mentioned that he doesn't want the spotlight. He has some anxiety about those kinds of things. And all the things I've just said about Nicholas was that he's not a big, marketed this way, marketing that guy. And he would maybe fit in behind the Paul and the people that need to be in the billboard as just a guy that plays really well and doesn't need to be on every YouTube video and, like.
I'm going to walk you through the thoughts of disc golfers on MVP's reveal, though. First 3 blue ones pop up. Oh, MVP! They deleted their whole Instagram. They deleted everything, and they put these things up. What's it mean? It's got to be Eagle. It's got to be Eagle. Then the next day, there's 3 more, and they're like, oh, but it's a disc. This doesn't make sense. It's got to be Simon's line. No, maybe Eagle's gonna get his own line. The next 3 come up. Wow, those kind of look pixelated. Maybe it's just the release of the Pixel. It's probably just the release of the Pixel. It's probably not Eagle. Next 4 come up. It's like, yeah, it's probably just the disc. And the next one's come up, and you're like, well, yeah, it's the disc, and it's probably Eagle. And then they came up with the video, and by then it was kind of like,
yeah.
Wow! I think I knew it was Eagle before they even deleted their Instagram stuff.
I think a lot of people suspected it, but I think
can't remember, because Eagle was on, I know you guys aren't big Brody Smith or Foundation, but he was on Tour Life with Yuli and Brody, and he was talking about the leak and even like the Gannon, because I think they were both on the same episode. And it was kind of funny, like, just hearing Eagle talk about Gannon showing up to his house to buy all of his discs before it was announced. So like, obviously those guys kept it in house, but I can't remember where, like, the leak, and like, obviously it's hard when Eagle's gonna go to MVP, like the warehouse or Michigan, and like, anybody who knows anything about Eagle, you're gonna recognize something or see him out on the course doing media stuff. It's so hard to keep everything in house, and just the people around you. Like, you want to get everybody's input of what you should do, and obviously it's impossible to completely keep it under wraps. But I remember where most of the like, who MVP rumors started, and maybe it was just pure speculation of like, Simon's there. This makes sense. But
I can't remember the exact thing, but I do know the big leak was that Eagle put the goodbye, thank you Discmania video unlisted, and then he said he put it in a playlist that was public, so that made it visible for a second. And the other thing that I thought was funny, because I did see the part of Tour Life you're talking about, Gannon, Alden, and Gavin Babcock came over to Eagles to buy discs.
The connecting to the TV.
Yeah, and Babcock wanted to put something on the TV, and he'd named his smart TV Prism Proton, which is the plastic name of his signature Envy. So Babcock looked at his phone and went,
what's this?
What's that thing, Eagle?
Eagle is such a disc nerd, man. I love it.
Cool. Well, Casey, I think this is a good time to say anything that you want to say to our thousands of listeners.
All the thousands, man. Oh, thanks for listening. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's awesome. I'm just about to fall asleep right now. I don't know if you can tell.
Are you sponsored by a disc manufacturer by any chance?
I am. Prodigy Disc, and Gander Disc Golf, 2 sponsors. So
Gander is where you can get these sick Rocket Bear stamps, right?
I don't think they have any more up on their site, but I have a lot of them. So anybody wants them, send me a message on Instagram or Facebook, whatever you want. I'll send one out to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, and
Thank you,
Maddie. Take us out.
In honor of Casey, while your signature disc might be a 3, in my mind, you're D1.
Thanks, Matt.
Champ.
Jesse.
Wow!
I hit the air horn like 5 times. Don't worry about it. Bye.
Later.